Is Ukraine going to receive 200-kilometer range glide bombs soon? We'll talk about this as well as about anything else that has happened along the front lines and behind them in this SITREP about the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have struck a factory in Chuvashia, which is producing antenna for Shahid drones, Iskander-K cruise missiles, and glide bombs. A fire has started, according to opposition media. The extent of the damage is unknown to me, though. Also, an attack was aimed at the airport in Voronezh. Ukraine says they managed to hit training planes as well as a glide bomb depot. We have here firms confirming fires at the position, but the extent of the damage is once again unknown. Then the Ukrainians say they managed to hit a refinery in Krasnodar. Also talks about fire there, extent once again unknown. The Russians continue striking Ukraine as well. One of the Russian strikes hit another recruitment center of the Ukrainians. This is now the third one. Clearly that the aim is to interrupt the Ukrainian recruitment, and as some of the attacks have been during the day, to possibly kill recruits as well. The Ukrainians are also reporting another double tap attack aimed at hitting 8 personnel, and they themselves published this here showing an FPV drone striking a fire vehicle. Again, clearly no military purpose of this vehicle, a war crime thus. We'll switch to the developments along the front line, and here from Sumy I have no confirmation of any changes along the front line here. So nothing has happened where the front line has moved. The same is to be said about the area of Kharkiv. When we switch to the area here north of Kupiansk, the Russians have reached Radivka, and after taking Holubivka, this is confirmed now by Ukrainian sources, showing that the Ukrainians lost some positions north of Kupiansk and the Russians are getting somewhat closer. Further south, the Ukrainians advanced close to Pershnotravneve. We have a geolocation at this point that the Ukrainians are operating in these areas here. This is at this forested area. Actually, that was a mistake. It wasn't here, it was here. So here the Ukrainians have advanced. In a geolocated video, Ukrainian positions are being attacked here in Novoye Horivka, and showing that the Ukrainians are operating further than they've recently did towards the direction of Kovalivka. Not a major change in this direction, but a change nonetheless. That's it. North of the Seversky Donetsk. South of the Seversky Donetsk, I have nothing to report from the Seversk region. And in the direction of Konstantinivka, we have two territorial changes. Once west of the southern Dilivka. We have a geolocation here at this point where the Russians have advanced where Russian soldiers were seen roughly at this point here. And the Russians have also closed in towards the mine here. At this point, we have a geolocation of a Russian soldier being attacked at this point, indicating that the Russians have reached here as well. From this region, there is an article in the New York Times saying that the Russians have sent their elite drone unit there, as was previously reported, and this is a game changer in the region. This is the same Russian drone unit that made the decisive difference in the Kursk region, where they continued striking logistics and the rear areas with their drones. This is now being done here as well, and increasingly diminishing the Ukrainian abilities to evacuate wounded, to rotate troops, and to bring in reinforcements as well as ammunition. So the Russians seem to be preparing the battlefield with their drone units now, with strikes deeper into the rear to cut off Ukrainian supply and thus weaken the Ukrainian position in this region. We go further west in the Pokrovsk region, and here we have a geolocation from Mykolaiivka. This is a Russian attack going upwards in this direction. with a mechanized attack. We have the Russians reaching up to this town here and almost getting close to the main road as well. So the Russians reach roughly up to here. The video itself shows hits on Russian vehicles and then disembarking infantry in this region. What happened to that infantry is unclear. The armored vehicles seem to successfully evacuate, at least for the majority of the way. So it might now be inside of the gray zone. The Russian soldiers there might have been defeated, but nonetheless, this is an advance of roughly 2 kilometers from the last positions of the gray zone, where the Russians this time, with the usage of three armored vehicles, managed to advance further here towards the north. Then we go towards the west, and there is no reported change, neither in the Novopavlivka region, in the Novopavlivka region itself, we do not have a change, but we have some developments close by. We have here the Russians advancing north of Pidupne. This is at this point here, where they have reached the town of Tolstoy, and towards the west, towards the south of it, the Russians have entered Pidupne as well. We have them here in the south, and we have them in the west. So likely Pidupne has now fallen towards the Russians too, meaning this area here is now under Russian control. This was it from this area. Further south, we have no changes in territory that can be confirmed. In the Zaporizhzhia region, we have the Ukrainians reporting that the Russians are redeploying forces and building their strength. The units deployed there are now up to 90% strength, indicating that likely a significant Russian offensive effort will happen in the future towards Zaporizhzhia city itself. That was it with the territorial changes on the ground. We have a news from the Black Sea as well. There, the Ukrainians have struck Novorossiysk with naval drones. No proof of any success, though, so the attack likely has failed. According to reports, also, we have something where there happened explosions on a tanker in Ust-Luga. This is the gas port close to St. Petersburg. The tanker has now started to sink, according to the reports. When we look at the overall situation, nothing has really changed. The Russians keep slowly their grinding advance in this direction. We have two changes here now. With their advance northeast of Mirnograd, the situation is increasingly getting unpleasant here, especially as we see them advancing in the south here as well, indicating that the Ukrainian positions in the east of the pocket here are thinner by now than they have been in the past, or the Russians are more successful. That three armored vehicles managed to get through without being taken out tells us a lot of the Ukrainian strength here. This is clearly troublesome for the Ukrainians. The Russians will likely try to bypass it in the north, though. And then the advances close to Kupiansk, obviously troublesome as well, even though the speed is the typical speed of the Russians, where the advances are in a snail's pace, but at a certain pace after all. They keep advancing. Then we have news about troop generation, or related to this. The Russian Statistics Bureau Rosstat has stopped to report the cases of deceased in Russia. So no longer data, they no longer provide data how many people have died in Russia. In the past, this has allowed to see excess death and thus extrapolate the Russian losses in the war in Ukraine. Then we have the Roman Starovoyt. He took his own life today after he was released by Putin as transport minister. The interesting part is that this taking of his own life was likely his own accord if we look at the circumstances. He was the governor of Kursk until 2024. And as you remember, there was the Ukrainian invasion into Kursk, which should have been stopped by border fortifications that were subpar and at times at a very bad quality. His deputy and successor, Alexei Smirnov, was just prosecuted. The prosecution has just started against him for the embezzlement of up to 190 million US dollars in converted money. And according to reports, he had just confessed and involved the Roman Starovoyt as an accomplice in this whole thing, so he was probably facing arrest. Then we have news that the Russians are sending additional forces to Armenia. This is interesting, though, as why would they send armed forces to Armenia when they are struggling in the war in Ukraine? But here we see that Russia clearly wants to increase or retain its influence inside of Armenia, where the Armenian president Pashinyan has previously announced and hinted that he might leave Russia's alliance system, the CSTO, and according to this, the Armenia would obviously slip out of the Russian sphere of influence, as Russia's relationship with Azerbaijan has recently taken a turn for the worse. It's unclear to me. Like, I'm unfortunately not able to say that this is in support of a coup, or this is to as Russia expects an invasion of Armenia now, or in which context this is to be seen is somewhat unclear to me as of now. We just have to acknowledge that the Russians are sending additional forces to Armenia while they are in the war in Ukraine. Previously, they had withdrawn forces from Armenia to strengthen their positions inside of Ukraine. Now, clearly, they have changed this. Then in international support, we have some news. Safran, the French manufacturer of the Hammer bomb, has managed to produce almost 40% more Hammer than initially planned. They managed to build 830 of the guidance kits in 2024 instead of 600, and the production goal for 2025 is 1,200. The Ukrainians were the main recipient for that guidance kit, and they have used it plenty from MiG-29, Sukhoi 25, and the Mirage 2000. And Safran has now introduced the AASM Hammer XLR that has a turbojet and a range of 150 to 200 kilometers. It is likely that Ukraine will receive those as well later in the year or probably next year, thus allowing it a standoff strike capability, either to strike deeper into the Russian-held territory or from a safer distance. But that was it already from me for today. If you like this SITREP, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And this channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.